everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address this subject and word it in sort of the form of a question, and that is music becoming less original? And my answer is sort of in between yes and no, and I'll sort of explain my reasoning as to why. I think in a general sense, I do think that people do borrow music from other artists. But again, I think it's sort of how you use that material that ultimately sort of determines whether or not it is something that required effort on your part or on your end to make the song unique or special in a certain way by adding in maybe different instruments or putting things in different keys, using maybe different vocals, all those kinds of things, I think really do determine sort of the quality of when music becomes less original in a sense. And I think there's also another reason as to why, yes, music is becoming less original, in that there is a cheap factor involved here because since music has become so easy to produce, it has become a lot more accessible, and therefore people would rather borrow from the the great giants of old rather than making something new or unique. And I think that cheapness has made it so that musicians become a little bit more on the lazy side. And I think there is some justification for this. I do think it is understandable to feel that music has become less original in that sense. But I do think that originality from the borrowing factor can be a determination of music becoming less original, or it can be just the fact that people took inspiration from the old and made it new and unique to them. Um, uh, Also, I think there's definitely another big reason why I think, on the one hand, music has become less original. And that's because we have really developed the genres over the years. I mean, in the 50s, that's when really we invented really the concept of really rock and roll. Um, Country was developing over all of these years within the United States, in a very interesting way. But now, since all of these different genres have developed and been modified and changed and tuned and redone in different ways, it makes it a lot more difficult to produce something that's ultimately really outside of all of these genres and do it in a way that is unique and sort of revolutionizes music, because we've pretty much taken everything that we could use, and have produced it in that sort of in all of those genres and formats. So I do kind of understand the difficulty that comes that came um, with the music becoming more developed, because it made it a lot more difficult to make something original, because as music evolved, there were more options and therefore more musicians who use those options, and there's only so much that you can do to make yourself quote unquote original. Uh, and again, I think that just comes with how you use the genre that you are trying to present. That's what I think it really comes down to. It's pretty much the same sort of concept with movies. Um, it's not the fact that movies have cliches in them; it's how they use cliches. And it's the same with music. It's how they use the art. Um, it's how they incorporate it into their product. That's what really ultimately I think determines the sort of originality of a of a musical piece. Now, again, I think it has become a lot harder for people to branch out and be unique and then at the same time appease to the fan base who may not be as open to change um, or who may feel that that's not a good direction that the band went into. There's always all of these other factors that really do play a role. Um, and Originality is really hard, and it's a hard stepping stone to make because it can either be beneficial for you or it can backfire because people like your older stuff better. It's it's always this it's pretty much how music sort of functions, at least nowadays. It's always I think we have sort of a nostalgia for music because it has been around so long and it has made such a revolutionary impact in the 20th century that it's hard to appreciate anything that is coming out of the 21st century. And I think that has to do a lot with the originality, the authenticity, the ability for the artist to say, "Wow, I've really created something new." And I think that's very unfortunate, but I think there is still some potential out there for artists to branch out and sort of do their own thing. And I think really what it all comes down to is if you're willing to put the investment in and put in the time and the energy. I think that's really ultimately all that matters. And then I think you can get a original product. Now, is it going to be as authentic and timeless as something that came out of the 50s and 60s? Probably not. But that doesn't mean that you can't make something good out of what you have. And so I think this is why I think a lot of artists are really discouraged nowadays because there is that originality factor. Like, oh, this doesn't feel original. Oh, I've heard this before. Oh, this sounds so familiar. And the thing is too is there only apparently there's only like 12 different notes. At least someone who's more experienced with music than I said that there's only really 12 notes you can play for music entirely. Like it doesn't matter what instrument you play. There's only like 12 different kinds of notes and keys you can go into, or not keys, excuse me, but different there's only a certain amount of combinations of notes you can use in order to again make music because you'll notice one, and this is how you'll notice that a lot of songs sound similar to one another. A lot of songs are using similar keys than other songs, and I think that's really ultimately what it all comes down to is how just they use different things and how they incorporate that into the final product that they ultimately showcase. It's not so much the notes themselves that they use, it's how they use them. And I think that's really when it comes down to any kind of art. I mean, even books, with books, it's, yeah, there's books that have cliches in them, and it's how they use the cliches. And it's Stephen King, perfect example. There's some points where his cliches really work and they do nail down and go and fit with the story, and there are others where you just think, what was that? What was the point? So it's trying to find that right balance of thinking outside the box and using still your creative mind and capacity, while at the same time understanding that there are things that that I'm limited to, and that I won't be able to not replicate, um, because this note maybe just sounds good to what I am ultimately putting into this bigger product. So again, that's really what it all comes down to. It all just comes down to um, how artists use it. I think there is more of a tendency now for the unoriginality factor to come in when the artists don't try or don't put in any effort and just copy and paste basically. I think there is a huge incentive for a lot of artists to do that because it is easy um, and I mean apparently you can get in trouble with the law, but apparently the rules are so laid back from as far as I can tell that you only need to change like a couple of notes in order for it to be original. So again, I think, but again, also I don't think too that making laws will probably solve anything as so much as I think people who truly know music and know like different genres and people who pay attention and listen to the most music will probably catch on to what that person is copying and what that person's trying to use, and they'll ultimately see if what they're doing is unique compared to what the original product was that made the song that the other song sort of trying to replicate. So again, it's a very complicated issue. I understand if there's other people who have different viewpoints on this, but my understanding is that I think there is a lot of unoriginality out there, but I think there's still a lot of original attempts. I just think it's become a lot harder because as more is being produced, the less you're able to use your talent to produce anything new to the table. So I think that's really a big dilemma, and I think is something really interesting and is definitely worth exploration. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.